So this morning, this Catholic priest, a pedophile, and a rapist walk into a bar and order a rum and coke. Might take you a while to get that joke, but I'm going to explain Catholic sex. And I realize that there's a great deal of hubris in me doing this because, I don't know nothing about the psychology of sex. I ain't got my own figured out yet, and I got 6 decades of working at it. And, but here's what it is. First off, they're all saying that mistakes were made and that we're going to fix them. We got it fixed up, and it ain't going to happen again. Well, here's the issue is that nobody's saying what was the mistakes that was made. And I'm going to make a suggestion of what maybe the mistake was, and just as an example of where they ought to be looking so that they could say, okay, look, here's what we found, and this is why it ain't going to happen again. So, for example, they could say, we had the false belief that if a man came to confession and whispered through the little screen that he'd been diddling boys in the parish and was really, really sorry, and he didn't want to lose his job, he didn't want to lose, didn't want to get kicked out of the priesthood, and oh God, was he sorry. So what the church needs to confess is that they had a belief that that was enough. That if a person came to confession and said he was really, really sorry and said it would never happen again, and then went away and said a whole bunch of Paternosters, Our Father prayers, and maybe some Ave Marias, and knelt on his rosaries, and I don't know, maybe took his belt and slapped himself on the back a little excoriation. Self-flagellation, I think is the technical term. They had a belief that would do it. That the sumbitch would stop diddling boys, and that'd be the end of it. And so if the church would say, now, but you see, that would destroy the church maybe more than all of these revelations coming out. All of these die-hard faithfuls who say, well, that was 30 years ago. Them people are over it by now. The priests ain't diddling no boys anymore. And it's my daddy's church and my grandfather's church, and so let it go. All of those people, if they were to hear the Pope say, we thought that if somebody went to confession and repented and said some paternosters, prayed the rosary, that would fix it. They'd stop doing what they were doing. If the hardcore faithful were to hear the Pope say that that didn't fix it, and we thought it would, and we don't anymore, we don't think that'll fix it anymore, we think that some guy that's diddling little boys, we probably got to call the police, because ain't nothing, we don't have the tools. We don't have the tools to get him to stop. Now, could the church survive saying that? In my opinion, the people who would stay are probably people they'd like to keep. And the people who would leave, let them go. Okay. Then let's turn around and look at it from the priest's point of view. I do have a little bit of experience in this area of talking to people, and that's why I'm going to put forward this hypothesis. A young Catholic man finds that he's sexually aroused around children, or maybe he's sexually aroused around boys, and he's thinking, oh God, you've got to lift this curse from me, please, God, please. And so he prays and he prays and says the rosary and maybe goes to confession, I don't know. At any rate, he really works at it, and then he thinks, if I were to dedicate myself to God, he would lift this curse from me. So he does, joins the priesthood. But here's the problem. He goes at the priesthood with extraordinary vigor, because more than other priests, he's highly motivated to get God's forgiveness and have God transform his life. He's highly motivated. So he's a damn good priest. He's really good. Maybe even rises up in the hierarchy, becomes, I don't know, archbishop or bishop or something, cardinals. He rises up, and even if he doesn't rise in the hierarchy, he just gets lots of kudos from his local congregation. You're just the best. You just have such a good influence on our boys. Well, so now he's got this strange psychology where he wanted God to take this thing off of him, but he didn't. He's still attracted to little kids, or he's attracted to boys, still is. And God seems to really like his work. I mean, people are complimenting him on the way out the door at church. People are pumping his hands, saying, oh man, that was just the best damn sermon, and you are such a good influence on our family. So, it's like, wait a minute. Now, I came into the priesthood to get rid of this curse, and that didn't happen. But instead, I find that God favors me. God really likes me. God likes the work that I do. So maybe it ain't a curse, and I just need to find little boys who like what I like, and then me and God are okay. So there you have it. A totally ignorant guess as to Catholic sex. And as you may have guessed by listening to my other YouTube videos, I do not let ignorance stand in the way of a strong opinion. Good morning. I love you, and I'd sure like to know if anything that I'm saying makes any sense whatsoever.